Hello everyone, this is part 14 of What If Naruto Was Madara's Brother, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist. To see more, comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Naruto stared at the man before him. It was hard to believe that this simple-looking old man who was probably in his early 50s ruled over the entire land of fire. He was thin and gaunt, with long black hair that were quickly turning white, but it were his dark green eyes that made Naruto a little uneasy. Lord Reiga Minamoto was one of the many feudal lords who had ruled over these lands for hundreds of years. There was a time when his family were just wealthy and influential merchants until their founding father, Lord Hayato Minamoto, started expanding his clout by forming alliances. From there was born the feudal monarchy that had ruled over both Uchiha and Senju for a very long time. Despite all their power and strength, neither great clan or their allies could muster as many fighters as the daimyo could. He had the largest standing army of the elemental nations, made up of 25,000 strong samurai, royal guards, shogun, many lesser-known clans, and the royal family's elite forces. Neither Uchiha or Senju had enough forces to beat those numbers. Even if they allied together, their victory would be bittersweet, for they would almost be annihilated by the time the daimyo's last forces were defeated. It was why he had knelt before this man, so had all his supporters, and he had no doubt even the mighty Senjus would have had to do the same when they first arrived at the capital. Kyoto. It was the name of the capital and the ancestral seat of the royal family. Looking at the city, Naruto could not help but be impressed. It was a vast settlement protected by walls that were nearly 50 feet high and protected by seals created by the Uzumaki clan themselves that prevented any ninja forces from scaling the walls by using chakra. Everywhere he looked there were vast buildings and even larger markets. Thousands of people dressed in colorful clothing could be seen either taking a stroll, buying or selling wares, or entering the numerous whorehouses. Across the innermost districts resided the nobles and advisors of the royal family. And in the center of the city was the Grand Palace. Even from this distance Naruto could see its 7 magnificent towers and the grand castle where the daimyo addressed his court. It was said there were many beautiful gardens and lavish bathhouses inside the castle. It was also heavily protected by nearly 1,000 fighters that were always on duty. Not to mention the city's personal elite defense force that always patrolled the capital and its adjoining borders. It would have awed any other man, but it only filled Naruto with bitterness. His ancestors had ruled over the elemental nations. Hagoromo's rule was an era of peace where people truly prospered, and it would have continued had the sage not chosen to deprive his eldest son of his right as his heir. Indra had all the traits needed from a ruler, and as for his shortcomings the sage and Ashura could have chosen to help overcome them by supporting him. Yet mistakes were made, and the result of which was the fact that the descendants of those great men were now forced to bow before a simple merchant whose family had just been smart enough to use the ancient B feud to their advantage. It was humiliating. Even the Senjus, who till this day considered it right that Ashura usurped his brother based on merit, were in turn the ones who also followed the tradition of the eldest son of the clan head becoming the next clan head. It was hypocrisy at its best. By right it should be the Uchiha ruling over the land of fire, with the Senjus acting as their supporting family, as it was truly meant to be. If that had happened, then it would not have been either Naruto or Hashirama bowing to a common merchant, but the opposite. Still, it was a moot point now as he saw Hashirama approach towards him. Looking at the Senju clan head, who also happened to be a former friend of Naruto's brother, made the Uchiha feel a little conflicted. Hashirama was a tall and muscular man. His fighting prowess was legendary enough to even make Madara respect him, but it was his kind smile and easygoing nature which put Naruto on alarm. He would have believed those emotions to be actually genuine, considering he had heard numerous tales of the Senju clan head actually being a kind and jovial man in reality as well. But after hearing what the Senjus did to all his aunts and uncles, what they did to this grandfather and grandmother, the suffering which Tajima and Naori went through, and the hole which was left in Naruto's heart because of the death of his brothers, made him glare at the man. Lord Naruto addressed Hashirama and the daimyo at the same time. Your Highness. Lord Senju greeted Naruto in return. His tone was curt and respectful, but the coldness in his heart did seep in just a little, making the two men nod hesitantly. It was that moment when Atama Senju chose to join his eldest brother, and Naruto smirked on seeing the young Senju flinch at the sight of him. I had hoped you would have provided a great challenge. Alas, I was sorely disappointed, said Naruto coolly, and was further elated when Atama lowered his head in shame for his defeat. The boy was so timid, it was actually a miracle he survived this long. Naruto had no doubt about the fact that if Atama had not been Hashirama's brother, the boy would have a long time ago. There was no room for weakness in this cruel world. A fact Naruto had to bitterly learn from his own experiences. So you are the young dragon. Coming from a family that proclaims themselves descendants of those great beasts, I find you quite disappointing as well. You even ride on a fox, imagine a dragon on a fox, chastised a feminine voice with a mocking laugh. Despite his hatred for the Senjus, Naruto had to use every ounce of his power not to gape at the girl before him. She was almost as tall as him with magnificent golden blonde hair that shined brightly under the sun. Her skin was fairer than his own, her beauty rivaling those of almost every beautiful woman Naruto had ever met. But it was those hazel eyes that struck him. He knew those eyes. And he knew this woman. Tsunade Senju greeted Naruto cordially, and he didn't miss the fact that even if she smiled at his greeting, her eyes looked more than most people Naruto had ever faced. I looked for you on the battlefield, pointed Naruto, earning another icy stare. You would have long been in your grave had I been there, retorted Tsunade darkly. Naruto knew a hothead when he saw one, and this girl was no different. From the corner of his eye he saw Naori and Mikoto giving him reprimanding glares, warning him not to cross a line. But the chance was too good to pass. It's funny. Your brothers said something similar, and look where they are now. One a prisoner and the other, well, I'd like Atama to answer that question, chipped Naruto sarcastically. You're out of line, K, spat Tsunade bitterly, her hazel eyes now looked ready to K. For his part, Naruto took the blatant insult with a dismissive smile, even as he saw Hashirama, Atama, the daimyo and other nobles bristle in shock. Many say you are the strongest kunoichi of this country. For some even the strongest in the elemental nations, suggested Naruto, and inwardly grinned when he saw Tsunade smirk. The stupid girl had walked right into his trap, because the moment he finished that sentence Mikoto snorted insultingly. Now you have seen me, warned Tsunade, and was further infuriated when Naruto laughed. I have. And I have to say. I'm not impressed, taunted Naruto, making a vein pop across Tsunade's temple. Care to back your words with action? Challenged Tsunade, as she briefly cracked her knuckles, making many people flinch. I knew Senju women were desperate for true men. Before he could finish the sentence, he was forced to draw his sword as 3 Senjus lunged at him, followed by Tsunade herself. Naruto easily parried and deflected the sword of the first enemy before delivering a brutal elbow to the man's face that sent him crashing away. The remaining 2 came at him howling like stupid brutes, which only made it more easier for him to evade their attacks before disarming them easily. It was at this time Tsunade was about to lunge at him but was forced to stop when Hashirama got in the way. The Senju princess snarled furiously but calmed down on seeing the entire Uchiha force as well as her own people along with the daimyo's forces looked ready to fight. She glared at the person who had provoked her to start this fight. Only now, when it was too late, did she realize that her mistake had costed her people, because Naruto turned towards the daimyo. Is this the hospitality you offer to your guests, Lord Raiga? Asked Naruto disappointedly, and was satisfied when the stern-looking man looked embarrassed for a change. That was never our intention, and I assure you it shall never happen again. Lord Hashirama, directed Raiga seriously. Hashirama sighed, knowing what was being asked of him, and since it was his own sister who started this mess by attacking Naruto, he had no other choice. He should have known Tsunade's feelings on the Uchiha, and particularly on the man who humiliated her brothers, clan, and allies. She literally poked the dragon and the beast burned her to ashes. Apologize, Tsunade, ordered Hashirama sternly, and didn't back down when she glared at him in disbelief. But, now, despite the stern order, she saw the silent pleading in her brother's eyes. The message was clear for her to understand, and one which she had to accept despite her desire to make the K familiar with her punches. Do it for Tobirama's sake. I apologize for my outburst, whispered Tsunade barely. She expected the K to further taunt her for her mistake, but instead the Uchiha gave a curt nod before stepping closer to her, even as Hashirama tensed. I spared your life once. Insult my people again and I will see that you pay for your mistake, warned Naruto seriously. Tsunade's eyes widened as she remembered her first battle. She remembered being scared out of her wits, barely able to hold her weapon much less defend herself. All she had done that day was avoid getting K by the older ninjas or even the ones of her own age. That was until she spotted someone whom she could take on. She had taken that chance only to fail and had watched that boy raise his sword. She had wet her pants as tears slipped from her eyes, she had been so terrified, weak and trembling. But the boy had stopped. He had looked at her and hadn't seen a senju but a girl the same age as him whose only crime was being born into the enemy faction and given a sword forcefully to fight in a battle she was not prepared to handle. It was you, said Tsunade in surprise. What are you two talking about? Asked the daimyo curiously, but the way he asked that question didn't leave any room for Tsunade to lie or evade giving an answer. So, in the end she told the truth of the events of that day much to her own humiliation. She saw many of Naruto's followers were miffed that he spared Tsunade's life, and Tsunade's own people were miffed at that mercy which she was granted. But the person from whom she was expecting most gloating was strangely silent. For the first time, Hashirama saw Naruto in a different light. At the same time, it contradicted every available information he had received about the boy. Naruto had spared Tsunade's life for she had been just a child like him during their first battle. That showed a lot of compassion from an Uchiha who must have already endured watching many of his own clansmen, allies, even family at senju hands. Despite all that, Naruto didn't kill Hashirama's sister. Then how could the same person then kill his own clansman years later with his own hands? Hashirama had a feeling Naruto could kill grown men and women, even teenagers, but he doubted the boy would be comfortable in killing children if his example with Tsunade was any proof. Yet he had even Uchiha children which earned him the name K. Yet years later during the conflict with the Fuma clan, Naruto had offered a chance of surrender to the last young ones of the Fuma clan. He had offered them protection if they chose to serve the Uchiha, but in the end the young ninjas chose to avenge all their kinsmen whom Naruto had already killed, losing their own lives in the process. It went to show that perhaps Hashirama didn't know everything about the boy. The Senju leader looked at their two sides and saw the tension was yet to subside, which did not bode well for their negotiations. Since it was Tobirama's life on the line, Hashirama decided to smooth things over as he beckoned one of his men to come forward. He was pleased on seeing Naruto's eyes going wide as he saw dawn brought before him. He saw all the joy, yearning and pride in the boy's eyes before they were replaced by skepticism. What do you want from me, Lord Hashirama? Asked Naruto directly, much to the daimyo's chagrin since the man wanted this to happen inside closed rooms. But the two-bitter clan had other ideas. Peace, answered Hashirama looking the boy right in the eye. Naruto was stunned by that offer and he was not the only one because both Uchihas and Senjus as well as their allies felt the same shock on hearing what Hashirama just revealed. You think by giving me my sword that you can have peace? The last time an Uchiha leader offered your people the same, your grandfather his family, accused Naruto bitterly. Or have you forgotten what your grandfather did to my brothers and sisters? Asked Naori icily. To his credit, despite the accusations Hashirama didn't falter and looked at the two Uchiha seriously. I am not that man. I am Hashirama Senju. There was incredible strength inside this man, but more than that Naruto saw honest and true conviction in those eyes. He made his intention even more clear by presenting Naruto his ancestral sword. The weapon which was Hashirama's only leverage if he wanted to save his brother. And if he was handing it out without any conditions, the man's siblings looked ready to revolt and so did his supporters, but Hashirama ignored them all and looked at Naruto directly. Deciding to take a risk, Naruto stepped forward and grasped his own sword. Both of them were still holding on to Dawn and felt a spark pass through their bi as the sword was still absorbing their chakra. They both smiled as in that subtle gesture they realized the scale of each other's power. Finally, Hashirama released his grip allowing Naruto to fully take Dawn in his hands. A small breeze passed across the area as Naruto raised his weapon. Even the Senjus as well as the daimyo and his family saw Naruto practice a little with his beloved weapon. His movements were clean, precise and extremely fast. There was grace in his movements, but more than that there was something that felt right on seeing Naruto with Dawn. Finally, Naruto stopped and sheathed the sword on his hip, replacing his previous one by handing it to a nearby Uchiha. He then looked at Hashirama with an approving gaze. "You're a man of honor, Lord Hashirama." Nobody had expected Naruto to give out such a compliment. Tsunade's permanent scowl vanished on seeing no deception in Naruto's eyes. It would seem her brother had earned the respect. In her opinion, it was a foolish move, but it was not her place to question her brother. However, it did make her worry more for Tobirama's life. The Uchihas were not a trustful lot, after all. But her opinion didn't matter because the daimyo seemed pleased that the hatchet was buried. For now. Before she could join their party in the march to the daimyo's castle, she found a demonic pair of eyes staring down at her. Tsunade had been intimidated by the great fox that brought Naruto here on his back. It was said this same beast helped the entire Fuma clan and had violently butchered any who tried to harm Naruto in any manner. In those eyes she saw grave intelligence and a stern warning. She had crossed a line today with Naruto, and if the menacing glare she got from the fox was any indication, she would have to do well not to do so again if she treasured her life. Tsunade quickly joined her brothers, making sure to avoid staring at the fox even remotely. Naruto sat in front of a table going through the 3 letters that had just arrived for him. 2 had been from his father and brother informing him of the fact that the Uchiha army would be camping near the river in 2 days. Heeding his advice, his father had called their remaining reserve forces from their own clan and allies alike as a precautionary move. It made him feel a little relieved knowing that if something did go wrong, then his father and brother would have 10,000 strong ninjas backing them. Their enemies would know better than to openly challenge such a force. As for him and his party, they were still in danger inside the capital and were at the daimyo's mercy. Sure, the Fire Lord had been kind enough in providing grand rooms inside his castle to the Uchiha nobles and other clan heads, while the common soldiers were given barracks to reside in. Still, their entire party as well as those of the Senju were kept inside the castle where the daimyo's men could keep watch. It had barely been a few hours since he got here and already Naruto felt as if he was trapped in a prison. Shisui and the other Kinsguard had discreetly sneaked out of the castle on his instructions and gathered information regarding the city defenses, weaknesses, where and when the guards changed shifts, as well as how many men the Senjus had brought with them. He was surprised to discover Hashirama had brought merely 3,000 of his forces with him to the capital and they were all currently inside the city. It was a cause of concern for Naruto because his forces inside the city were outnumbered and should the daimyo side with the Senjus then he was truly done for. Still, he placed aside the letters from his family and stared at the last one that bore a seal that made his eyes go wide. He looked across his room and was relieved to see Mikoto soundly sleeping in his bed. She looked exhausted but happy and he felt the same, certainly after their rigorous activity in the sheets for 3 hours. He had to admit, there was so much to he never knew before and with every encounter he learned more and more. Most of all, he didn't regret going forward with her even if their future was not uncertain. What he did know was the fact that once this affair at the capital was done with, he was going to ask Tajima's permission to marry her. It was true that he still didn't know if he truly loved her or not, but he did have feelings for her which would always be more than he would ever have for whatever noble girl his father chose for him. Now that he was claimed back by Tajima, it won't be long before Tajima tried to use that to get him married to an Uchiha or one of their allies' daughters to strengthen their bonds. Tajima may love him, but the old man was always a clan head first and father later. Still, Naruto felt he had a good chance of making his wish be accepted because of 2 reasons. The first being if he succeeded at the capital and his past victories would present a meritorious claim, and the other reason was the fact that Naruto was Tajima's youngest son. It was Madara who would inherit everything while all Naruto could hope to gain were a few lands and maybe command his brother's army. Those prospects would not appeal to many clan heads to marry the daughters to such a second-rated man. As for Naruto, he didn't mind any of that because he was happy with his freedom. He then decided to focus back on the letter and hesitantly broke the seal. Casting one last glance at Mikoto, he then raised the paper and the message changed his world. Dear Naruto, I know I promised that I wouldn't interfere in your personal life, but this is something that you needed to know. I'm pregnant. The medics confirmed it a few days ago. The head nurse says they could most probably be twin girls. But I cannot say for certain. What I do know is the fact that I saw you in my dreams again. I know you do not believe in prophecies or my visions, but I saw what I saw. A shadow looming near a great beast. Whatever it was, I dare say you'll see it soon enough. There is no need for you to visit me or even acknowledge these children. But I will never stop you from visiting them because they are your bee. If they are boys, then you must take them with you because I cannot keep them with me despite my wish. If they are girls, then the law demands that I keep them with me. But I know how much you desire a family of your own, and if we have girls or boys, then I want them to know their father. If you wish it, I can arrange for you to take them with you on the condition that they be acknowledged as your legitimate children and be loved. I shall also be allowed to visit them and vice versa whenever desired. Please remember the 3 instances I told you about where your choices will determine not just your future but that of this world. And be safe. It would be nice to see you again. Yours, Priestess Shizuka. Naruto quickly set the letter on fire and tossed it in the nearby dustbin, waiting till the moment it was completely destroyed. Only then did he sink into his chair and numbly stared at his own reflection in the nearby mirror. A father. He had wished for it so badly all these years. In the eyes of many, he was nearly an adult now, since ninjas in this age didn't live well beyond even 20 years of age. Few lucky ones managed to live till 30 years. His father was one of the men who survived even more than that. But considering Naruto's own life and the endless conflicts he was always involved in, his survival was never certain. And now he had something to live for, something more to fight for. Fear coursed through his heart on imagining if he would ever be able to be the father a child really needed. And Shizuka was saying he might just have to. The storm it would create in his family and his own reputation were enough warnings that made him dismiss the idea of acknowledging them. At least right now. If they were girls, then Shizuka would look after them and he would visit them regularly. But if it were boys, he his forehead, knowing it was good and bad at the same time if Shizuka gave him twin sons instead of daughters. The Naruto clan would never allow boys in their midst, which would force Naruto to take them or give them to someone who could look after them. Either option was disastrous for Naruto. Madara was supposed to be the next leader, only if he or was rendered incapacitated could Naruto rise to leadership. But if by some tragedy all 3, Tajima, Madara and Naruto were killed, then even so the Uchiha clan will have male heirs that could resume leadership in the future with Naruto training them. So, he made his decision. If they were boys, then he would take them with him rather than leave them as orphans or on someone else's mercy. Tajima could throw a hissy fit, but the old man knew the benefit of having spare heirs to maintain their family's leadership over the Uchiha clan. Even if they were girls, Naruto would acknowledge them as his own and be a part of their upbringing. If they desired to join the Uchiha, then no matter who opposed him, Naruto would get them under his roof. He suddenly paused. He had always been protective of his family, but this feeling burning inside his sea so brightly was entirely different. Love. Those children were not even born yet, and from this moment he felt a bond forming with them. They were his. A lone tear slipped from his eye and he smiled, for his impulsive decision of spiting his father might just have given him the most important gift of his life. He had to visit Shizuka after settling the affairs here at the capital once and for all. He had to see if she was being properly taken care of, if she was eating right, and provide any help she needed from him. She was one of the few people who had never judged him because of his dark past, and she was going to be the mother of his children. He was bonded to her for life now and he didn't regret it. Together, they had created something good and priceless. He remembered his own mother didn't survive giving birth to him and it made him clench his fists. He never wanted his children to grow up without a mother, he never wanted them to grow up under a distant father. They deserved every happiness in life which Naruto never got, and for that he was willing to risk anything. But for now, he had an entire different matter to solve by tomorrow. He looked at the sky and saw the sun setting. They were expected for dinner with the royal family in an hour. Still, he wanted to get some sleep and if possible dream over what his children might look like. Would they resemble him or their mother? Would they be more like him or her? So many questions, so many possibilities, so many fears. He knew he would go mad if he continued thinking over this matter, so he quietly sneaked into the bed and snuggled himself towards Mikoto, who, sensing the warmth, wrapped herself around him without protest. With a smile on his face, Naruto went off to a peaceful sleep. Naori curiously stared at her nephew as they both walked side by side towards the dining hall where they would be feasting with the royal court and the Senjus. She had known the boy enough to realize when he was happy or sad, and right now he looked to be over the moon. You look quite pleased, said Naori with a wry smile. I am, he admitted easily, and patted Dawn at his hip. Gods knew the boy loved that sword, but she knew getting it back couldn't be enough for Naruto to look so happy. She then saw the way he absently skipped his step in excitement and she grinned at him. So you and Mikoto finally got together, I see. Naruto faltered, making his aunt chuckle. His cheeks flushed and he felt like a child being caught stealing something. Naori was grinning at him victoriously and he knew her enough to know that lying was not an option. I want to marry her, he confessed, and saw her raise her eyebrows in surprise. So soon. Why don't you two take it slowly? Suggested Naori, but he shook his head in denial. I'd rather not, or else father would find some uglier bride for me as punishment, said Naruto hesitantly. Why would Tajima do that? You have always made him proud, countered Naori, and saw the boy bite his lips. You know about her past, she's not worthy to marry into our family in father's eyes, pointed Naruto. Maybe, but if you want it to happen, it shall happen, she promised, making him stare at her curiously. How? The gentle smile he received from her made his heart nearly melt. The love she had for him clearly reflected in her eyes as she touched his cheek with her hand. Leave Tajima to me, she suggested, as his eyes widened slightly. You do that for me. Naori came forward and laid a tender kiss on his forehead, making him blush, but he still looked in her eyes. I love you, Naruto. He knew that she had felt that emotion towards him from the moment they met again after Izuna's death. From then, there was no going back and they had grown closer and closer every day. She had stood by him, supported him, guided him, looked after him in every tiny subject of his life. He knew his father and brother loved him, so did Mikoto. But it was she who said those priceless words to him. The first person to ever say that to him. It all felt like a blur to him, and the next thing he knew was that he had her in his arms in a fierce embrace. There was a time when she was taller than him, but it had long since passed. Now he was taller and more broader than her, enough to make her melt in his embrace. He could not say anything and she didn't need to hear it because his choked breath was all she needed to know. He relaxed when she hugged him back by wrapping her arms around his back and placing a motherly kiss at the side of his head. When they finally broke apart, she just smiled at him before beckoning they resume their walk. She moved forward but stopped when she discovered her nephew was not following. Turning back, she stared at him and saw him staring at her with a look she couldn't understand. I love you too, he whispered. A lone tear fell from her eyes as she moved forward to embrace him again. She had known how he felt for her. For him she was his mother in all but they treated each other as good friends. Naruto loved his family with all his heart, but there were only two people he had loved more than anything or anyone. She was one of them. They finally parted and composed themselves even if their hearts were full of joy. They maintained a dignified silence as they entered the hall and saw Tobi Shimura and Rei Namikaze waiting for them. Together the group of four walked towards the head table where the daimyo and his sons got up to greet them. The royal family was seated at the center of the table, while the Senjus sat on the left side. The Uchiha faction was provided seat on the right side of the vast table. Naruto became oblivious to the pleasantries and small talk being exchanged among the people. He did his part here and there, contributing little to the talks as Naori took the lead. She was so smooth and graceful in the way she talked, even the daimyo's three sons seemed entranced by her. However, his eyes were fixed on a beautiful but woman who was staring at him quite keenly. Tsunade's gaze could be considered borderline impolite, but he didn't back down and looked at her calmly. They both were forced to break away from their staring match when the daimyo called for their attention. I want you all to stop this unending war of yours and broker peace among yourselves, said Reiga seriously, and was soon backed by Hashirama himself. We want you to return Tobirama to us unharmed. In return we shall relinquish all claim nor start any conflict with the Hatake or Yamanaka clan, said Hashirama honestly. Naruto knew enough about politics to realize there was always a downside to any offer that looked too generous. I'm sensing you want something more, said Naori expectantly, her gaze narrowing sharply, which made Hashirama grimace as he looked at the Uchiha matriarch, then at Naruto followed by Tsunade. I do, confirmed Hashirama. Before anyone could question further, the daimyo called the attention to himself, making everyone stare at him. It is I who suggested this solution to Hashirama in the first place and would like to see it fulfilled. Your conflicts leave my lands damaged and cause great loss of life. All of this affects the livelihood of my subjects and has a direct impact on the security and economy of this nation. More than that, I have received an urgent distress call from the Uzumaki clan, revealed Reiga. The Uzumaki? Asked Naruto curiously, earning a nod from the daimyo's eldest son, Shinji Minamoto. They are our distant allies just as they are of the Senjus. They give us many good goods and play a large share in our trade. They also helped us build this city's defenses. Recently, they have spotted several ships circling around their borders at sea, answered Shinji, causing Naruto to frown. The mountain clans from the land of lightning. They don't often venture so far from their lands, and aren't they embroiled in civil wars with rival factions? Even the daimyo and his family were exterminated a few years back, pointed Naruto, looking directly at the fire daimyo who narrowed his eyes at him for that hidden message. Naori placed a hand on Naruto's knee which made him shut his mouth instantly. Fortunately, the daimyo either ignored the veiled threat or had more pressing matters to discuss. That's just it. The mountain clans have disappeared, so have most of the other clans in that nation. Our spies have heard nothing from that nation in months except silence, revealed Reiga gravely. Naruto furrowed his brows in concentration. The Uzumaki lived in the land of whirlpools and also controlled the land of water, both of which were the easternmost outposts of human settlement. More than that, they were the furthest allies the land of fire had in the elemental nations. The only rival those redheads had were those factions from the land of lightning who irregularly raided their lands. If it was not the mountain clans probing the Uzumaki, then someone else was. The Uzumaki were vital allies of the daimyo and the Senjus, but they barely had any relation with the Uchiha except for mutual trade, and even that was restricted to common items found in any other markets. Something is brewing out there which poses a threat to us all. If they are coming for the Uzumaki now, sooner or later they will come for us as well. We need to stand united to face that threat, and we cannot do that if you keep on fighting amongst each other, spat Ken Minamoto insultingly. The second son of the daimyo was a short man but had the balls to say such a thing. Old beef feuds don't end easily, Lord Ken, warned Naruto icily. His eyes glared so hard that the man flinched and looked away. Do you think our enemies care whether you are Uchiha or Senju? The land of fire is the largest and most powerful nation in this world. Everybody wants what we have. And when they come for us they will kill every Uchiha and Senju who try to get in their way, advised Shinzo Minamoto, the third son of the daimyo. The man's tone was calm and respectful, but Naruto saw the urgency present in his eyes. Our war cannot be settled by words, Lord Reiga. It can be delayed to deal with this threat, but unless the Senjus accept our rule there can be no peace. Indra Uchiha was the rightful heir and he was usurped. We will not rest until what he sought for our people is achieved. It may take 5, 10, or even thousands of years, but we shall have it, declared Naori boldly. Naruto had to admire his aunt's courage. To say something like that directly the daimyo himself and with such a fierce gaze was not something even he could imagine pulling off. The daimyo's family didn't look pleased and the Senjus looked ready to explode. So much for negotiations. You're right. Words don't settle wars, but marriages do. Naruto and Tsunade both froze at the same time as the daimyo looked at them pointedly before announcing. I, Reiga Minamoto, daimyo of the land of fire, hereby announce a marriage pact between the Uchiha and Senju clan. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.